Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you all grinding well in Warframe. Now there's a lot of stuff for me to get through with, hopefully before Scarlet Spear launches this month, which aside from the occasional delay phenomenon, should launch without issue, because it's one of the very few things right now not actually affected by that rogue, thirsty sickness, at least not directly. Also, RIP TennoCon 2020 and my dreams of looking for a better future, for the time being at least. Kinda surprised they decided to pull the plug this early, but hey, I'll probably use whatever money I have saved so far to further upgrade the production equipment and maybe treat myself. Remember guys, the merch store does exist. Every little bit helps. And no, I won't be wasting it all on a special edition anime body pillow. And with that said, we're simply gonna be comparing a few shotguns today. I've been hearing and reading plenty of RIP statements regarding the Tigris, but the one shotgun that caught my eye after the recent status changes was the Exergis, mainly due to its relatively high status per projectile of 36%. I believe only the Convectrix is superior at 45%, but it has 2 multi-shot, whereas this fires 3 shards per shot. If I understand the new status changes correctly, then if we could get the Exergis to exactly 100% status with the same multi-shot, that should mean each shot would proc 3 status effects, at least in theory. Is this a massive change for the Exergis and or shotguns in general? How does the Exergis perform now in 2020? Because keep in mind, this isn't exactly a review, but more of a revisit since I did do an original shotgun showdown back when the Exergis came out. In that video I preferred the Arc Replays more, just felt that the Exergis was a tad too slow and the crit chance being abysmal. It still is, but the status changes, viral in particular, I feel may have turned this thing into an absolute beast. Alrighty, let's jump straight into the power tests. Y'all know the deal, level 20 knocks with no mods equipped. The Arc Replays beats out the Exergis here, just like last time, and the performance of both weapons remain incredibly consistent. The last time I tested these boys, the Arc Replays managed an 8.89 second run, whereas the Exergis managed 12.66 seconds. As you can see here, there is not much of a difference. The Arc Replays does exit the error margin slightly, which I'd say is probably due to the fall off range, which starts at 10 meters, and the guaranteed impact procs, which kinda exacerbates the issue. That's just how I do my tests. In no way I am purposely being biased against the Arc Replays here. It's the same exact way I conducted testing in the past video, or videos for that matter. But wait, didn't enemies get an armor and health nerf? How could the numbers be the same? Well, not exactly. Remember, it's only at around level 80 where the enemies start to get quote-unquote easier. At level 20, everything is the same as before because the algorithm applied follows an S-curve. And of course, I'm not gonna ignore the Tigris Prime, which managed a very decent 7.35 second average time. Compare this to a regular Tigris, which would take around 18.95 seconds. That's a huge difference. Moving on with the Amalgam Machinist test, which allows us an opportunity to take a look at how shield gating affects weapon performance. The Tigris Prime absolutely dominates here, 2-shotting all the way. I'd say if it wasn't for the shields, this thing could have quite possibly one-shot the sentient Corpus Boy. The Exergis ain't that far behind, it has to be said, with a great average of 5.23 seconds. But the odd one out here really is the Arc Replays. An average time of 20.5 seconds is quite bad, even considering that it is unmodded. I'd prefer weapons to finish this test in under 20 seconds, anything under 15 is good. 30 seconds is the hard cap that I've set. Anything more is a straight up fail, and you can see the Arc Replays being on the upper end of the charts here. I'd attribute this to the Arca's lack of IPS, mainly slash damage. Yes, it does proc impact if the target is within 15 meters, but the Amalgam Machinist has shields that are resistant to radiation and thick flesh that is resistant to impact. Again, the unfortunate testing scenario of a 10-meter fixed range coupled with guaranteed impact procs does make things worse for the big plasma boy. But hey, baseline testing doesn't tell the whole story or indicate the true potential of a weapon. For that, we will have to include testing with mods, but please, keep in mind, boyos, that testing weapons in Warframe is near impossible to keep consistent, more so when mods are involved. Just because Weapon A finishes this test faster than Weapon B with a similar mod setup does not mean that Weapon A is the absolute superior performer in every scenario. take these results as a sort of reference to what you can expect out of the weapon rather than quote-unquote solid proof for trolling in the forums, for example. Also, a couple of details that I have to mention. The corrupted heavy gunner has been substituted with the Exo Officer simply because even at level 160, those heavy gunners are too easy for a properly modded weapon. It just messes with my test resolution and error margins, so we're gonna go with a level 100 Exo Officer. Corrosive status works on them now, so I don't really see a problem, though feel free to criticize me in the comments. All three of them are using similar corrosive builds, except the Arca Playsmore, which makes use of a couple of crit mods, since it has a better balance of CC and SC compared to the Tigris Prime and Exergis. You may get better results with a viral 100 munitions build or high slash build, but for the sake of consistency, or trying my best to maintain whatever consistency there is, all weapons will be primarily modded for corrosive, and all of the weapons tested include Rivens except for the Tigris Prime. Yes, I know I'm throwing consistency completely out the window here, but the point of this test, again, is to highlight the weapon's potential, not necessarily to show an absolute direct comparison. Also, it has to be said that with a disposition of 0.55, a Riven for the Tigris Prime would most likely be useless, unless you could get that supposed perfect roll. Exergis Rivens, on the other hand, are so cheap. I bought mine for just 100 plats. Granted, it was not the best roll, of course, but for a lot of players, that's not an issue. Y'all hungry, Kuva hoarding filthy animals? Links to all builds and Rivens used in this video will be in the description below, so please check the description if needed. So, how do these weapons perform against arguably one of the toughest enemies in the game? Surprise, surprise! The Exergis ends up being the fastest with a 9.27 second run, which is almost 5 seconds faster than the Tigris Prime. Not to mention the Exergis was extremely consistent during testing, with the maximum difference between results not exceeding 0.05 milliseconds. The Tigris Prime is a little less consistent, but the main cause of it losing out, I'd say, is due to the reload speed. I did try swapping in Tactical Pump, but that made negligible difference. The gain in reload speed is offset by the loss of damage, so overall, the DPS remains similar. The Arca Playsmore, that just performed poorly, taking about 25 to 30 seconds. The hard cap for this test is 20 seconds. If you can't kill a level 100 Exo Officer with a fully modded weapon within 20 seconds, I think it's safe to call it a fail. And I tested at a range of 3 meters just to help the Arca perform better, but the results were virtually identical. If you have a Riven for the thing, then I'd say try to go for a roll that would help you optimize for hunter munitions, perhaps base damage, CC, and fire rate. This thing needs fire rate. And that concludes testing. The Tigris Prime and Exergis perform very well indeed, with the Arca Playsmore being on the disappointing side. You could say it's because that thing didn't receive any sort of status buff due to apparently not firing projectiles but just plasma waves. So yeah, Arca Playsmore is truly and surely killed in 2020. Sad. So let's talk about what makes the Exergis a big deal here compared to other shotguns. It mainly has to do with that multi-shot to status per projectile ratio. With a viral focused build and the cheap Riven, you'd be surprised at how often viral hits the 10 stack cap on the first shot. And this synergizes excellently with heavy build melees such as sights, because that viral damage buff applies to bleed ticks, which is totally not OP, right D? I have to say that the Exergis truly shines when wielded by Harrow. I can't think of a better frame to help take this shotgun to the next level, or next 2 levels. You can reliably take down a level 160 Exo Officer in 3 to 4 shots. Heck, you can even one-shot a rank 5 Lich, under favorable circumstances, of course. You'll want to stay tuned for my Harrow Lich Hunter build, which is probably coming up in the next couple of days, where I'll also talk about how you can optimize the Exergis for maximum destruction using Harrow's abilities. Does that mean you should go and build the Exergis right now? Well, not really. If you already have one, I'd say it's worth taking another look if you've left it rotting in the inventory for some time. For those of you who love to play around with Rivens, the Exergis could prove a fun little experiment with its 1.0 disposition. Prices are cheap, at least cheaper than most shotgun Rivens. It could prove to be a fun little weekend time burner. How about the rest of you who never built the Exergis before? Well, aside from MR, I'd say there are other shotguns which you may want to consider first. And if you're watching this video on the day it went up, I'd say wait for Corinth Prime. Wait for Corinth Prime. If you'd like to continue this discussion or just want to hang out with some like-minded lewd boyos and goyos, then please make the $1.50 jump and come join us at the Discord server through Patreon. We're gonna be streaming some good anime titties this Saturday. Again, rip my social life. That's all for now. Catch you guys real soon in the next video.